finished. The Honourable Carl McGinn, the question is the motion be agreed to.
I thank the member, the Honourable Member Matt Swinburne, for putting this up. Look, as people would be aware, I've spoken in my inaugural speech about workplace safety and some of the circumstances that I've been through in my time offshore and working my way up through it. Look, I want to reflect on a few things back in my days offshore, and particularly around the comments by the Honourable Michael Misham in respect to LTIs. Now, the story that I was told about the Stena Clyde, I'm going to tell a part before leading up to that incident. Now, I was a chef, second cook on the day shift there, and I cut my finger to a point where it was hanging, this finger here, and I went up to the medical centre and I was getting treated. Whilst I was getting treated, the OIM of the rig come down immediately and said, "You'll be okay to go back to work, won't you?" And I've sort of gone, "What do you mean?" This is why it's still hanging off, by the way. The Stena Clyde had a 7-year LTI-free pin tag that they were very proud of. Now, during the 12 months that I'd been on that rig, I had seen incidences happen where someone had been injured and were put in the exact same situation I was finding myself. "You'll be okay, get back out there on the job. We can't afford for you to hop off the rig because then we'd have to lose our 7-year LTI-free pin tag, which is good for our customers." Now, this creates a bad safety culture from the top all the way down to the bottom. People then begin to not report issues, not go to the medic, feel uncomfortable about reporting it. When I said to the OIM, "No, I am not going to work because my finger is still hanging off," when it had finished, they'd put a splint on, and still I was being pushed, "Can I go back into the kitchen?" And I said, "No, it's not going to happen." We settled on a compromise, and you know, I still regret making that decision. I should have gone home. But the compromise was that another worker would come out and perform the role, and I'd sit in there and watch TV on the rig. That meant that the LTI 7-year pin tag they had remained intact. Now, you may say that it's reduced since the 80s. I will say that the culture has gotten worse on safety within our workplaces, heavy industry, hospitality, we can talk about them all, based on intimidation and fear. And I think another big factor of it also to take into account is casualisation, labour hire. You know, too many times over my career have I seen somebody come up to me and say, "Look, I think this is unsafe, but I'm not going to raise it because I haven't had a job for 2 months. I'm casual, and if I do raise it, I'm in fear that I'm potentially not going to get the call to come back to work." That's a disgrace in this country for somebody who is a casual worker on a job that's worth millions of dollars to be told, "I'm not going to raise an issue because the last person that did that is down the road and hasn't had a job since." And yes, I have seen that happen. I've had situations where people don't want to be the HSR on board a vessel because of fear of retribution. You know, I think the basic thing for somebody in this country to go to work is to have the right to raise a safety issue and if they feel unsafe at work. They shouldn't be put into a position where they're in fear of that. You know, the Stena Clyde with a 7-year LTI free, only to have 2 people killed not long after that. You know, LTI free to me being used by companies to sell contracts, it has to reflect the actual figures. You know, and I think probably I wasn't around, I wasn't a worker back in the 80s, I was only just born in 88. But we had quite a strong movement in respect of 8-hour days, rosters, acceptance of the 38-hour week, the 40-hour week. We had an attitude, I believe, back then of toughen up. You know, the culture of just get on with the job. You know, the shorts, no long pants on heavy industry. There's some pictures back there that just shocked me. That culture was around an 8-hour day that had been won as well. We're now looking at people that are doing 14 hours a day. I'll say 12 is what's on the books, but some of them do 2 hours travel in that circumstances from camp to mine site. So 14 hours a day with a 4-on-1 roster. You know, the other issue that we have that goes hand in hand with that is the mental health issues that come along with it. And I can tell you now, if I'm working in an unsafe workplace and I've got to put bread on the table for a family, not only do I have to worry about ensuring I don't get the punt, I've also got to worry that I don't get killed on the job. Somehow to do that without being able to raise a safety issue, that's a failing. And this is happening, I believe, a lot more to the casual workers. I worked with a few sites in the stevedoring industry where even the permanents had got to a point, because of the amount of victimisation towards casuals, that they were afraid to raise an issue, and their reason to me was, I don't want to put a target on my head. How can we say that safety is a target for termination? That is unacceptable. I think anyone has the right to raise safety and to be protected when they raise safety. And not to mention also the families and the people that are impacted by deaths and injuries within workplaces. Too many times do you see people who get injured, they go back, they go home. A lot of them don't want to go on workers' compensation. They feel as though workers' compensation becomes a mark on their name. And then that's another fact for them not getting a job. So we need to ensure that these types of things improve, and I believe workers' compensation should be there for the person who's injured, not there for the people who are brave enough to put their hand up and accept it. I think another issue that we foresee within it as well, particularly again, I'm sorry, but my background is seafaring. There's situations where we had foreign labour on vessels, and we see it happen on flag of convenient vessels that come in and out of our harbours every day. Port Hedland is just a prime example of flags of conveniences that are coming in and out of that port, where people are engaging with operations with crews that don't speak English. That creates a safety issue within itself. Now, we have a high standard, I believe. We try to have a high standard on safety in Australian workplaces. How can we ensure that when we're performing work with people that come from another country, that their safety standards are met the same as Australian safety standards? That's something that they should be welcomed with when they come into this country. Not different standards on their operation than an Australian operation, which is what you see on flag convenience ships. I think we have to have a serious look at what's happening in culture and what workers are being faced with every day out there on the job. And we need to, as members of this place, our families expect us to come home safe. Families with people that work in heavy industries or any industry in this state or this country deserve to go home just as safe as what we do. So I thank the member for putting this up today. I look forward to listening to more debate.
Question is the motion be agreed to the Honourable Alison Zamon.